The evening sky was painted with strokes of orange and fading purple. The city park was unusually quiet, except for the faint rustle of dry leaves tumbling across the path. A tall man in a perfectly tailored suit sat alone on an old wooden bench. His posture was sharp, but his eyes, tired and heavy, betrayed a different story. He was a CEO, the kind of man people whispered about in boardrooms, admired in magazines, and envied for his success. Yet here he was, sitting in silence, his tie loosened, his hands clasped tightly as if holding on to something invisible. His phone buzzed with emails, but he didn't bother to look. For once, business didn't matter. The truth? He was lonely. Not the kind of loneliness that comes from a quiet room, but the deeper kind. The kind that echoes in your chest even when the world is loud. People surrounded him every day, assistants, employees, shareholders. But not one person truly sat beside him. A chilly wind brushed past, tugging at his jacket. He sighed. Another night, another reminder of how empty success felt. Then, tiny footsteps broke the stillness. He glanced to his right. A little girl, no older than 7, skipped along the path. Her hair was tied in 2 uneven pigtails, and she clutched a ragged teddy bear to her chest. She looked carefree, yet there was something unusual about her presence. It was bold, almost fearless. She stopped right in front of him. For a moment, she just stared, tilting her head as if trying to figure out why a man like him looked so sad. Her innocent eyes scanned his face, noticing the shadows there. "Why are you sitting here all alone?" she asked softly. Her voice was gentle, but it struck him like thunder. No one had asked him that in years. People usually asked about profits, stocks, or deadlines, not about him. He hesitated, his throat dry. "I'm just thinking," he muttered, almost embarrassed. The girl hugged her teddy closer. "Thinking makes people sad sometimes," she whispered, her words far too wise for her age. He chuckled faintly, though his smile never reached his eyes. "You're right." Silence lingered between them, the kind that wasn't uncomfortable, but strangely calming. For the first time that day, the CEO felt his heart slow down. Suddenly, the girl's eyes lit up. She leaned forward, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. "You can be in our family if you want." He blinked, stunned. "What?" She nodded eagerly. "Our family isn't very big. It's just me and Mommy. But you look lonely, and Mommy always says families should help lonely people." Her innocent declaration hit him harder than any boardroom debate or financial crisis ever had. The CEO felt his throat tighten. No one, absolutely no one, in his adult life had offered him something so pure, so unselfish. His mind flashed back to his own childhood, a time when his father was always absent, buried in work, and his mother's love felt like a distant memory. He had promised himself he would never live like that. And yet, here he was, successful, but utterly alone. The girl's words echoed inside him like church bells. "You can be in our family if you want." For a second, he wanted to say yes. He wanted to lean into the warmth of that invitation, to believe it was real. But a voice inside reminded him. He was a CEO, a man with walls built high. He couldn't just belong. He cleared his throat, trying to mask the storm brewing inside. "That's very kind of you," he said quietly. The girl smiled, her missing front tooth showing. "It's not kind. It's true. I think you need us." Her honesty left him speechless. As she skipped away toward a woman waiting at the edge of the park, the CEO sat frozen. The little girl's words clung to him like the autumn wind. For the first time in years, he felt something stir inside, a fragile hope, a longing for connection. The woman, likely her mother, called her back. The girl turned one last time and waved at him, her eyes sparkling like the first stars of the evening. The CEO raised his hand slowly, returning the wave. His lips trembled, forming a smile he didn't realize he still had in him. But as the night deepened, a single question burned in his chest. Could a man who had everything the world offered, yet nothing his heart needed, truly find a family waiting for him in the most unexpected place? The next morning, the CEO sat in his sleek corner office, the skyline of the city stretching endlessly beyond the glass walls. Papers were neatly stacked, emails poured in, and meetings were lined up back to back. It was the life he had built, structured, successful, and admired. Yet, for the first time, it all felt strangely hollow. His mind was still at that park bench, still with that little girl. Her words echoed inside him like a melody that refused to fade. "You can be in our family if you want." He closed his laptop mid-sentence, something he never did. The silence in his office pressed in on him, louder than the ticking of the clock. Why did it matter so much? He muttered under his breath. He had heard countless compliments from executives, empty praise from employees, and forced laughter at networking dinners. But this was different. A child's innocence had reached where no one else could. Later that day, almost without realizing it, he found himself back at the park. The same bench, the same quiet path, the same swirl of autumn leaves. He didn't know what he was expecting. Maybe to see her again, maybe not. The bench creaked slightly as he sat down, adjusting his tie nervously. He felt ridiculous, an important man waiting like a child for someone he barely knew. Minutes passed. Then footsteps. The little girl appeared again, her teddy still tucked under her arm. This time, her mother was closer, walking beside her. The woman looked young, tired, but graceful, her eyes carrying both strength and exhaustion. The girl spotted him instantly and waved, running up to him without hesitation. "You came back," she exclaimed, her voice bright like bells. He smiled faintly. "I did. Thought I'd get some fresh air." She sat down beside him, swinging her legs. "Fresh air is good for sad people," she said matter-of-factly. He raised an eyebrow. "Do I still look sad to you?" The girl studied him seriously for a moment before nodding. "A little, but not as much as yesterday." Her mother caught up, giving the man a polite, cautious smile. She looked at her daughter, then at him. "I hope she hasn't bothered you," she said softly. "Not at all," he replied quickly. "She's quite remarkable." The woman chuckled nervously. "She has a way of talking to strangers like she's known them forever." The girl tugged at her mother's hand. "Mommy, this is the man I told you about. The one who looked lonely." The mother froze, her cheeks flushing. "Sweetheart," she whispered, embarrassed. But the CEO laughed, genuinely this time. The sound startled him, as if he hadn't heard it in years. "She's very honest," he said, glancing down at the girl. The mother shifted uncomfortably, then nodded. "Well, she's not wrong. You do look like someone carrying a heavy weight." Her words cut through him like a blade, not cruelly, but truthfully. He swallowed, unsure how to respond. The girl, impatient, pulled on his sleeve. "Did you think about what I said yesterday?" He blinked. "What you said?" She grinned. "About being in our family." His heart skipped. The mother's eyes widened, clearly mortified. "Oh, sweetheart, that's not something you can just—" But the girl interrupted, firm and certain. "Why not? Families are for sharing. Maybe he needs us." The CEO's chest tightened. He wanted to dismiss it, to brush it off as childish imagination. But the truth was he did need something. Something more than money, more than status, more than endless days in glass towers. He met the mother's eyes. There was hesitation there, but also kindness. She seemed wary of him, of his polished suit and expensive watch. But beneath it, she looked like someone who had faced her own storms. "I don't know about family," he said slowly, his voice almost trembling. "But I'd like to sit here again, if that's okay." The girl clapped her hands. "Yes, then we can be friends first. Friends before family." Her mother exhaled, half smiling despite herself. "I suppose there's no harm in that." The CEO nodded, a strange warmth spreading through him. He wasn't sure what this was, friendship, fate, or something in between. But it was the first time in years he felt human. As the sun dipped behind the trees, casting golden light over the park, he realized something. The walls he had built so high might not be unbreakable after all. But little did he know, this unexpected bond would soon test everything he thought he knew about life, love, and what truly mattered. The days turned into weeks, and the CEO found himself visiting the park more often. At first, he told himself it was just coincidence, a convenient place to unwind after long meetings. But deep down he knew the truth. He was drawn back by the little girl's laughter and the unexpected calm that came with her presence. Every time he sat on that bench, she found him. Sometimes she skipped over, sometimes she ran, sometimes she walked quietly as if sensing his mood. And each time, she carried the same innocence that cut through the heaviness he wore like armor. Her mother, cautious at first, began to soften as well. She would sit nearby, watching them talk, always protective but never discouraging. Slowly, conversations grew. One crisp afternoon, the wind whistled through the trees, carrying with it the scent of roasted chestnuts from a street vendor nearby. The CEO sat on the bench, his usual stern expression softened. The little girl plopped down beside him, her teddy bear tucked under her chin. "You know," she said seriously, "you don't smile enough." He chuckled. "I smile plenty." She shook her head firmly. "Not the real kind. Not the kind that makes your eyes happy." Her words pierced him. It wasn't criticism, it was truth. "Maybe I forgot how," he admitted quietly. The girl thought for a moment, then suddenly hopped off the bench. "Then I'll teach you." Before he could ask how, she began making silly faces, puffing her cheeks, crossing her eyes, sticking out her tongue. He couldn't help it. A laugh burst out of him, raw and genuine. His shoulders shook, and for once, the sound didn't feel foreign. The girl clapped. "See? That's the real kind." Her mother, watching from a few steps away, smiled softly. Something about the man had changed, less rigid, less untouchable. Later that day, the mother finally joined their conversation. She sat gracefully on the bench, though there was a distance in her posture, like someone used to keeping walls up. "You're good with her," she said quietly, almost reluctantly. The CEO glanced at her. "She makes it easy. She doesn't open up to everyone," the woman continued. "She's special." He nodded. "I can see that." Silence lingered. Then she added softly, "Her father left before she was born. It's been just the two of us ever since." Her words hung in the air, heavy and fragile. The CEO's chest tightened. He knew abandonment well. He had lived it in his own way. "I'm sorry," he murmured. She shrugged lightly, though her eyes betrayed pain. "We've managed. She keeps me strong." The little girl returned just then, holding 2 paper cups of hot cocoa she had convinced her mother to buy. She handed one to him with a proud smile. "For you. So you don't feel cold anymore." He accepted it, the warmth seeping into his hands. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with something he couldn't quite name. The girl leaned against him comfortably, sipping her drink. To anyone passing by, they looked like a small, ordinary family. But to the CEO, it felt extraordinary, because it was something he had never truly known. That night, lying in his vast penthouse apartment, he couldn't shake the image. The girl leaning on his shoulder. The mother's quiet smile. The warmth of hot cocoa in his hands. His apartment, filled with expensive furniture and city lights, suddenly felt colder than ever. He walked to the window, staring down at the endless traffic. For the first time in years, he admitted the truth to himself. He didn't want to be alone anymore. But as he drifted into uneasy sleep, one haunting question echoed in his mind. Could they truly accept him if they knew who he really was? The man behind the suit, the scars he carried, and the secrets he kept hidden? The following week, the park bench felt different. The air was colder, the wind sharper, almost as if the world itself carried a hint of unease. The CEO sat there, waiting, tapping his fingers lightly against his knee. His chest felt heavy, not from business deals or deadlines, but from something far more personal. He had realized something dangerous. He wanted to belong. When the little girl finally appeared, running toward him with her teddy bear bouncing in her arms, his heart lifted almost instantly. Her mother followed behind, a slower, careful pace. "You came again," the girl said, climbing onto the bench beside him. "I told you I'd be here," he replied, smiling softly. The girl's mother stopped near the bench, this time, instead of keeping her distance. She studied him with curious eyes, her expression unreadable. After weeks of brief conversations and polite nods, there was something different in her gaze. Hesitation mixed with trust. They spoke for a while, light-hearted chatter about the changing leaves, the chilly weather, and the girl's dreams of having a big family. But the CEO felt the weight pressing against his chest. He couldn't pretend forever. Finally, he turned to the mother. His voice was steady, but inside, he was trembling. "There's something I should tell you," he began. She raised an eyebrow, cautious. "All right." He swallowed hard. "I'm not just some man who likes to sit in the park. I run one of the biggest companies in the city. People see me as powerful, successful, someone who has everything." The girl blinked at him, confused. "But you don't have everything. You don't have a family." Her simple truth shattered the tension like glass. He looked down, ashamed. "She's right. I don't." The mother remained silent for a long moment. Then she asked softly, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," he said, his voice breaking slightly, "I don't want you to think I'm hiding something. You deserve honesty. Both of you do." Her eyes softened, but there was still a shadow of doubt. "You could have kept that to yourself. Why risk telling us?" He inhaled sharply. "Because, for the first time in years, I don't feel empty when I'm with you. And I don't want that to be built on lies." The little girl tugged his sleeve. "So what if you're a boss? Mommy's a boss too. She bosses me around all the time." Her innocent laughter broke the heaviness. Even the mother couldn't help but chuckle. But then she turned serious again. "You may be honest, but that doesn't mean I know you. My daughter likes you, yes. But trust takes time." He nodded slowly. "I understand." The girl leaned against him, yawning, her head resting on his arm as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The mother watched silently, her eyes searching his face for answers she couldn't yet form into questions. That night, when he returned to his penthouse, the loneliness hit harder than ever. The walls echoed. The silence screamed. He poured himself a glass of water and stared at the reflection in the window. For years, he had built walls of glass and steel, protecting himself from hurt, from loss, from needing anyone. But now, a little girl with pigtails and a teddy bear had cracked those walls open, and he was terrified. The next day, he arrived at the park again, but the bench was empty. He waited. 5 minutes. 10. An hour. No sign of them. Panic crawled into his chest. What if they decided not to come back? What if telling the truth scared them away? The sound of footsteps made him turn sharply. It was the mother, alone this time. Her eyes were steady, unreadable. She approached the bench, and for a long moment, she said nothing. Then finally, she spoke. "She asked about you all morning. She wanted to come, but I needed to know something first." He leaned forward, anxious. "What?" She crossed her arms, studying him. "What are you really looking for? A distraction from your lonely life, or something real?" Her question sliced through him like a blade. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The silence stretched, the autumn wind howling around them. His answer, whatever it was, would change everything. The CEO sat frozen on the bench, the woman's question hanging heavy in the crisp autumn air. "What are you really looking for? A distraction or something real?" For the first time in years, he felt cornered, not by shareholders or rivals, but by truth. He swallowed, his voice low, trembling. "I've spent my whole life chasing numbers, achievements, things that looked important. But at the end of the day, I go home to silence. Empty rooms. Empty heart. I don't want a distraction. I want something real. I want to belong." The mother's expression softened slightly, though her guard did not fully drop. She studied him, as if weighing every word, testing for cracks of dishonesty. Finally, she spoke. "And if real comes with responsibility, if it means not walking away when things get difficult." He didn't hesitate. "Then I stay. I've walked away from too much already. I can't keep doing that." At that moment, a small voice interrupted. "Mommy." The little girl came running, her teddy dragging on the ground. She must have slipped away from the edge of the park, where she'd been waiting. Her eyes widened as she saw them. "You left me out. What are you talking about?" The CEO bent down, meeting her eye level. "We were talking about families." Her face lit up instantly. "Oh, like when I told you that you can be in ours." He smiled faintly, his throat tightening. "Yes, just like that." She grabbed his hand, small fingers wrapping around his. "Then it's simple. If you want stay, you stay. Families don't ask too many questions. Her innocence was disarming. The mother let out a quiet laugh, shaking her head. It seems she's already made her choice. In the days that followed, their meetings at the park grew longer. Sometimes they walked together, the girl hopping between them, holding both their hands. Sometimes they simply sat in silence, watching the world go by. The CEO began sharing pieces of himself he had locked away for years, stories of his childhood, his regrets, the loneliness that shadowed his success. And in return, the mother shared her struggles of raising a child alone, of holding on to hope when life seemed determined to break her. Slowly, carefully, trust began to bloom. One evening, as the sky turned dusky pink, the little girl climbed onto the bench and spread her arms wide. "This is my favorite spot now," she declared proudly, "because it's where I got two families to become one." The CEO felt a lump rise in his throat. He looked at the mother, whose eyes shimmered with something unspoken. Neither of them said the word aloud, but in that moment it was there. A fragile beginning, a seed of belonging. Weeks later, the CEO stood outside the park with a decision to make. He had just stepped out of a board meeting where investors demanded his time, his focus, his energy. The old version of himself would have obeyed without question. But tonight, his feet carried him somewhere else. He walked to the familiar bench. The girl ran to him instantly, throwing her arms around his waist. The mother stood nearby, smiling softly. "See," the little girl whispered against his coat. "You came back again. That means you're staying." For once, he didn't argue. He simply bent down, hugged her tightly, and let the warmth sink into the cold corners of his heart. That night, in his penthouse, he didn't feel alone. He looked out at the city lights, but instead of emptiness, he felt a quiet certainty. Life wasn't about towers of glass or balance sheets. It was about laughter on a park bench, about cocoa cups shared on cold evenings, about a little girl who believed family wasn't something you're born into, it's something you choose. And maybe, just maybe, he had finally been chosen. Sometimes, the smallest voices carry the deepest truths. Do you think family is something we are given, or something we create with the people who truly see us?